Hey guys, welcome back to Reignited. Now, I'm so excited to tell you guys that I have finally been released to actually work on cars again. If you haven't been following along, I recently had neck surgery to replace a couple of discs in my neck, so I've been out for quite some time recovering from that. Now I can work on some cars again, and we're gonna get working on the twin charge Magnum, fix everything that I think is wrong with that car that's holding it back so that it can finally reach its full potential. Now, a quick recap for those of you who may not know much about this car. Now, this is a 2005 Dodge Magnum. It was originally the RT model, so it came with the early Gen 3 Hemi in there. I went ahead and swapped that to the later style 6.4 liter 392 Hemi, and I've also supercharged and turbocharged it. Thus, it is twin charged. This thing currently is making right at about 600 wheel horsepower and 700 foot-pounds of torque. So it's definitely making some decent power, but there are some things that I do want to upgrade and make changes for. Primarily, last time you guys may have seen this on the channel, we were taking part in one of the drag and drive events called Redwood Rally. And the car just really wasn't nearly as fast as it should have been. This thing was running mid-12s essentially, which is basically a full second slower than I anticipated it would have run.
Left lane's going to run a 12:52, right lane.
It's running the exact same time as my 1986 Chevy C10 ran, which is the naturally aspirated 392 Hemi in that vehicle.
Winning with a little bit of throttle in a bottle, run 7:33.
12:48. They're running identical times. So the math isn't quite mathing there. That's something we're gonna address in this video. Now, you guys have seen at the track that I'm already struggling to put down the power that this car is currently making, so it really doesn't make a lot of sense to make more power at this time. So anyway, I got a new camshaft so we can make way more power. Realistically, you guys, the reason that I'm doing this is, actually there's several reasons, but the number one reason is because the cam that I have in there right now, it's a Melling Performance cam, and it is very much, you could tell that the power band, especially due to the dyno torque curve, it's really meant for more low end and mid-range power. Now, one of the reasons I went with that cam is because I didn't want to lose too much street ability of the car. I was worried if I went with too much of like a race cam, it would be a terrible street car. So I went with that cam and it ended up being way too conservative. I mean, it's a fantastic camshaft if that's where you want it to live, is in that low to mid-range power. But obviously I want this thing to rev a little bit, being essentially a street but race vehicle. So on the dyno graph, you can see that that cam basically topped out at 5,000, 5,200 RPM. It would tail over really bad at that point. I want a cam that's gonna carry on through up to about 6,500 RPM, 6,700 RPM, something like that. That's what I'm after. With that being said, enter the Texas Speed Stage 4 Boost camshaft. I'll go ahead and put the cam specs for this on the screen right now. This should achieve what I'm going for with the car. First thing we need to do is get this car up in the air. I'm gonna take the wheels off. We're gonna take the front bumper off because I'm gonna take everything out of the front so I can get the cam out. Intercooler, transcooler, the radiator, it's all coming out so I can slip that cam out of there. So we are going to do this with a style where I'm not gonna pull the heads on this thing. I'm just gonna pull the cam straight out the front. You guys will see how that process works. Let's get into it. Oops. Oh no, I've ruined my pristine bumper. All right, easy enough. Now we got all that stuff out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and take our belts off here. We're gonna start taking our accessories off because this timing cover needs to come off so we can get to the actual camshaft itself. So let's dive into that. All right, we got all the accessories pulled off of there. You saw me just take the crank pulley off. Now we're gonna go ahead and pull the timing cover off. Now, one thing I do wanna mention here is that you do not have to remove the water pump in order to remove the timing cover. On the bolts here, there's only some that go all the way through the timing cover, and they're all accessible from the outside here. So essentially, this bolt here at the very top of the water pump at the 12 o'clock position, that's going to be a long one that actually goes all the way through into the block. And then it's every other bolt that is a long one. So basically you got the long one, short one, skip that one, the next one's a long one, and you go all the way around the water pump and you'll get to all the ones that are holding the timing cover on. So therefore you don't have to pull the water pump off, you won't have to replace the gasket or anything like that. So just an easy tip. Now I do want to point out here that this is an unusual setup. It's certainly not normal because I've basically custom made all the front end stuff here for this car. But if you want a good tutorial on how to actually remove all this so you can actually replace the camshaft, I do have another video I did many years ago that covers this process in much more detail. You can watch that right here, up here in the top corner. But for right now, let's go ahead and pull this timing cover off. It's no secret that cars are evolving faster than they ever have before. They're becoming more complex, more difficult to work on, and most importantly, more difficult to diagnose correctly. This means that if you are someone who likes to fix or maintain your own vehicles, then your tools need to evolve along with them. This is my Autel personal scanner. This one is a professional scanner and it has pretty much every feature under the sun. It's also extraordinarily expensive. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum are those simple powertrain scanners you can get for as cheap as 15, 20 bucks, and it'll tell you what the powertrain codes are. I'm not really a big fan of those, and it's because I feel like they give you incomplete information. I always equate it this way. Imagine you're trying to bake a cake and you have a recipe, and the recipe says you need 3 cups of flour. And that's the only thing it says. You're like, well, I kind of need to know the rest to actually make this cake. Powertrain scanners are exactly the same thing. They only give you one piece of information, and if you're going to try to diagnose something accurately, that's just not enough data to do so. Now, of course, between those two extremes, there has to be a middle ground, and that's something I like to focus on my channel. I want to help out you amateurs, you hobbyists as much as possible. You guys who want to stay at the forefront of where automotive technology is now and where it's going. And I've got something for you today that I think fills that niche perfectly. As I already mentioned, I'm a big fan of Autel, and a sub-brand of theirs is called OTOFIX. Now that's what we have for you here today. This is a 7-inch touchscreen scanner with a Bluetooth OBD2 connector, and this little scanner is very powerful. It will get you 90% of the way there for my big expensive scanner, but it's 17% the cost, so very affordable for your average enthusiast. Let me take just a couple of minutes to show you some of the features on this scanner here. Very capable unit, especially for its size. Also, if you're wondering, this right here is actually a sneak peek at one of the next long-term projects on the channel, so stay tuned for that. Now, like any other scanner, you have the option to go into the individual control units. So if we click on this and go to, you can either do an auto scan of all the control units, or you can pick which individual one you want. And then you can look at, we have powertrain, body, chassis, and info, comm, and entertainment. Now these will change based on the type of vehicle that you have selected here. And these aren't just one module per each of these. If you look at powertrain here, we've got the ECM, the TCM, and the electronic shifter. On the body side, we have a huge array of different modules we can be looking at. Chassis side, same thing. We got ABS, EPS, and the ASCM if your vehicle is equipped with that air suspension control module. Then info, comm, and entertainment, we have a ton of different options for that as well. But the one feature I wanted to highlight for you here, let's go into the powertrain and let's go into engine control module. Now note that we have a ton of different information here. You can do the basics like reading of codes and erasing codes and such, but more importantly, we have live data here. So we can be watching live data stream of all the sensors for the ECM while the engine's running. It gives us a huge amount of information when we're trying to diagnose things. Now also notice we have freeze frame and event data. What that is that when your engine sets a code, it will automatically save a bunch of the information from the sensors that was happening during that time. So we can look at that data, and that hugely influences how we help diagnose things. Now the big one though, the one that really means a lot to me that most scanners don't have at this price point, is it does have misfire data. So essentially this is live misfire capability. So if I were to actually, well, let's get this started here. Now you can see that it says waiting right here because the engine's not running, and it's got a value count up top, and then right here it lists the individual cylinders and if there's any misfires on those cylinders. So if we were to start up the vehicle here, all right, you can notice that it goes to in progress and this number starts counting down, and it did actually register a misfire. What cylinder did it register on? Looks like it's cylinder number 6. However, it's not counting up, so it's not a constant misfire. It was just on initial startup, which is fairly common. So this thing is such a cool feature, and this is the biggest reason why I wanted to bring this scanner to your guys' attention, because like I said, most of them in this price range don't have this ability. All right, let's go away from these control units for a moment and go into these hot functions here. You can see that there's a huge array of things that this thing is capable of. You can be resetting your oil maintenance light, checking out the tire pressure monitoring system. It has a brake bleed function for the ABS brakes. If you have a diesel, you can reset the DPF on there, or you can do a forced regen. You can actually program the keys for your vehicle. You can reset the steering angle sensor. There's a huge array of stuff here, including you can change your tire size. You can get into the ABS or airbag modules. You can reset your transmission adaptives. I mean, there's just a massive array of stuff that this scanner is capable of doing. I know I'll be keeping this one in my personal toolbox at work because it's really going to come in handy when I'm working on those off-brand vehicles and I don't really feel like busting out a big dog scanner like a $6,000 scanner, because there's just no need for that when this can handle pretty much everything that comes its way. Now I gotta say, as a professional technician, I get a chance to try a lot of different scanners, and plus, because of the YouTube channel, I get a lot of different companies contacting me and saying, hey, we'd love to send you our scanner, but most of them seem to be kind of a retread of something I've already seen before, and that is not the case with this scanner. Such a potent combination. I did not have a chance to go through even a partial amount of things that it can do for you. I highly recommend you guys, if you are at all interested, check out that link down below in the description and go see what this thing could do for you and your vehicle. Now, the really nice thing is that they kept the price point low. They kept this attainable for the average enthusiast. Now, from May 17th to May 25th, 2025, they're actually running a sale on this thing. That's what that link down below will get you to, for $320 for this thing. That's an incredible value for what this thing is capable of doing. Now, after that time, it goes back to its regular price of $399. So if you are at all interested in buying one of these, I would definitely jump on that as soon as you can. Okay, all that's done. Let's get back to our cam install. We've got the timing cover off. I'm gonna go ahead and spin the engine over to go ahead and line up this thing, make sure it's at top dead center for when I pull the cam out. Now you'll notice here that I do have the Melling Performance 10452 HV pump on here, so it's a high volume oil pump. This thing creates a ton of oil pressure, you know, especially idle. So really happy with this upgrade. It's been working fantastic. It's staying on the car. Okay, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and spin the engine over until the mark on the camshaft, the timing mark, is at the 12 o'clock position. And I'll show you guys that once I get it there. The reason this is important is because once the camshaft mark is at 12 o'clock, we know that the crankshaft is in the correct TDC position, the top dead center position as well. We need to make sure we're doing this before we take any of this stuff apart, because we can't actually see the crankshaft timing mark unless you pull the pump off, which at various models is various difficulty to do that. But if we set the camshaft to the correct time first, we know the crankshaft is in the correct time. We don't have to mess with it. Now, some people will say, well, is it on the exhaust stroke or the intake stroke? It doesn't matter, guys. The crankshaft doesn't care what stroke it's on. All it knows is that if it's in time or not, right? So as long as that's in time, we don't have to worry about that. We can just pull this cam straight out, put the other cam straight in, retension our timing chain, and we're good to go. All right, I'm gonna try to get you guys in here so you can see what I'm talking about. There is a vertical mark directly there on the cam sprocket itself. There we go. See that vertical line? And we're gonna line that up with the 12 o'clock position on the top part of the block here. All right, we've got the whole front end of the engine ready to actually take that cam out. Now, before we go ahead and take the cam sprocket off, I wish it was as simple as that, but we actually have to remove the valve covers. We've got to take the rocker arms off, take the push rods out. That way we can spin the cam over a couple of times, get those lifters pushed back in their bore so we can get that camshaft out. I will say, before we actually go ahead and remove this cam sprocket, make sure you take those rocker arms off, because we don't want our valves to be under any kind of pressure, because that could potentially twists the engine or cause it to rotate just slightly, and that's absolutely what we do not want to happen. We want the crank to stay absolutely still. So my next step is going to be removing those valve covers so I can get those rocker arms off. Unfortunately, like a big idiot, I put a big old supercharger, turbo, exhaust, all sorts of junk in this engine bay. They're all covering the valve covers. So I've got to get all that stuff out the way. You're going to see that next. All right, we're just about ready to actually pull our cam out. You saw I got the rocker shafts off of there. I pulled the push rods out. So now there's nothing holding those lifters up against the cam lobe. Once we actually pull this cam sprocket off, we'll spin the cam a couple of times, and that'll help knock those lifters back up into the boards enough to where we can get the camshaft out. You need to go ahead and pin this tensioner in place. So basically just use a little pry bar, push back on this. There's a hole right here that you can stick something through. You can see I actually put an Allen head through that, and that keeps that tensioner pinned into place. Then there's a couple of 10 mil bolts. We're gonna go ahead and remove this tensioner entirely. Now, when we unbolt this cam sprocket, we're not gonna take the timing chain off, and we're not gonna skip teeth or anything like that. We're just gonna pull it back off the cam and roll the whole thing off to the side here. So that when we go back together, we can just put it right back into place, and we've changed nothing about the timing system. And keep in mind that even if the chain itself moves, don't worry about it, because we know that our crank is in time, and then we can visually put our cam in time. So with those two things in place, the chain itself is somewhat irrelevant. Okay, so in my case, I did end up having to take the cam sprocket out because I had this extended block right here that's my oil feed for my turbo, so it wouldn't lay over quite like I wanted to. But like I said, the chain itself is irrelevant. We know that our crank is in time, and if we put our camshaft in time, then the chain basically just connects the two. That's all that's happening there. All right, and also you'll notice that on the camshaft itself, that your dowel pin is pointing straight up and down. That is your orientation for your cam. It's at that 12 o'clock position. Now we just need to pull this thrust plate off, and the cam will come out. Now, one of the most common questions I get from people is, can I change my camshaft in my Gen 3 Hemi without actually pulling the cylinder heads? Clearly you can, since that's what we're doing in this case, but I don't generally like to do that. And the reason why not is, number one, if you're replacing a cam in a Hemi, more than likely, if you're on your original lifters, they need to be replaced as well. So it just makes sense. Plus, it's not that much more work to pull the heads on this thing. Plus, there's an additional benefit to where once you have the heads off, you can absolutely verify that you're at top dead center and check your timing and all that. So it's just a better solution if you can do that. However, you don't have to. But the drawbacks here of doing it the way we're doing it is because the lifters are in their trays and they're angled slightly downward, as soon as we pull that camshaft out of there, gravity starts taking effect, and those lifters can actually push forward, and if they come forward far enough, they could fall down inside the engine block, and that would be an absolutely bad day for everyone involved. So my suggestion, and what I have here, is that as soon as you get the old camshaft out, you have the new one ready to slide right back into place. Don't give those lifters a chance to move at all. Now, yes, they're only at a slight angle, and the lifter bores are pretty tight, so chances are not great that they're gonna come sliding forward, but you don't want to chance it. Get that old cam out, new cam in as quick as you can. We'll be done with this thing. Okay, moment of truth. Time to pull this guy out of here. All right, old cam out, new one going in. You'll notice I've already lubed this one up. It's not strictly necessary since there's a ton of oil in this engine already, but it's not a bad idea. There we go. New cam is in, lifters did not fall. We did okay. Again, the dowel on the cam itself, you'll want to position that at the 12 o'clock position. There it is, guys, a morning's work, and we have our new camshaft in place. Now, as we go back together, I have a couple more tips to show you guys, but also we have a couple more changes we're gonna make as we're reassembling this thing, so stay tuned for that. Okay, we got our cam thrust plate back on, we got our cam sprocket back on, and if you see here on the front of the cam sprocket, there's our timing mark, and we have that lined up with our 12 o'clock position. Now, I do want to mention once again, you can kind of see the timing mark on the chain itself right there. Again, this is completely irrelevant. They have those there just as a guide to help you if you have the engine completely apart. But in our scenario, we know that the crank's in the correct position. We know that the cam is in the correct position. That's literally all that matters. Don't worry about the marks on the chain. Now, when I did my previous video talking about a cam replacement on a Hemi engine, by far, not even close, the most common question I got asked was, how do you hold the engine still while you're torquing down that cam sprocket bolt? Well, I'll show you that right now. So the solution is probably easier than you think. Right here on the transmission, there's a little inspection plate. You just got to pull that inspection plate off. That gains you access to your flex plate. And then you basically just stick a screwdriver in there or a pry bar or something to keep this from rotating while you're torquing down that cam bolt. That's all there is to it. All right, we're gonna dry up the area around the oil pan gasket here. Now, when you put the timing cover back on, the only thing you have to do is run a small bead of RTV just right here in the corner on each side of this thing. Don't run RTV all the way around the whole entire thing. That's completely unnecessary, just in those corners there. We've got the timing cover back on the engine. It's all bolted up, and I have one more tip for you guys, and that is that I will wait until now to actually drain the engine oil from the engine. Now, what is the reason for that? Well, it's because when you pull the timing cover, inevitably you're going to get some coolant that's going to go down into your oil pan. Now, of course, you could drain the oil first and then try to drain that coolant afterwards, but there's little pockets where it can get stuck. Whereas if you leave the oil in the pan and then the coolant goes in there, coolant will naturally find its way to the bottom underneath the oil. And then when you pull the plug, that coolant's going to come out first, followed by the oil. So you know for a fact that there's no coolant left in your oil pan whatsoever. So that's why I do it the way that I do. All right, let's test and see if we get any coolant first before the oil. So pretty clearly an important step to do this, to get all of that out of your engine first. And it's actually surprising me how much is coming out of there. All right, now it's starting to mix with some oil. Still mostly coolant. There we go. Now it's oil. So yeah, pretty critical step. And this way, all that oil that's sitting on top of the coolant is going to force it right out the engine. You don't have to worry about it. Now, a short time later, we have the entire top end of the engine reassembled. Everything's ready to go there. Now, again, if you want a more detailed video on replacing the camshaft in your vehicle, watch that video that I linked to, because it's going to be much more applicable to your car. This one, there's so much custom stuff that doesn't exactly translate. Unfortunately, guys, I'm going to go ahead and have to break the video off there. You'll have to wait till the next episode to hear how this thing sounds with that new cam in there. But the next episode is also exciting because we're doing another major upgrade. We're rebuilding the entire back half of the exhaust, and you will hear that sweet, sweet chop noise from that new cam. Let me tell you, it's worth the wait. I hope you guys come back for that. Thanks you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Reignited.